The blood appeared before Elena Martinez even felt the pain. 3 drops falling into the dust of Virginia City's Main Street, while the man who struck her still had his hand raised for another blow. Isaac Grant had been leaning against the saloon's weathered post watching the late afternoon crowd when he saw it happen, and something inside his chest cracked open like a frozen river in spring. For 6 years he had ridden through Nevada territory without letting a single emotion show on his face, had buried his parents and 2 brothers without shedding a tear, had taken bullets and knife wounds with nothing more than a grunt. But the sight of that split lip on the young woman's face made his hands begin to shake. Not with fear. With rage so pure and hot it felt like touching a branding iron. He moved before thinking, his boots hitting the packed earth in long strides that closed the 30 feet between them in seconds. The man who had struck Elena, a gambler named Dutch Morrison, who had been causing trouble in Virginia City for weeks, barely had time to register Isaac's approach before a fist connected with his jaw. The crack echoed off the false-fronted buildings lining the street, and Dutch went down hard, hitting the ground with enough force to raise a cloud of dust. "Get up," Isaac said, his voice low and steady despite the trembling in his hands. He flexed his fingers, trying to stop the shaking, but it would not quit. "Get up so I can put you down again." Elena stood frozen, one hand pressed to her bleeding lip, her dark eyes wide as she looked at the stranger who had intervened. She had come to Virginia City 3 months ago with her father to open a dress shop, and in that time, she had learned to keep her head down and avoid trouble. But Dutch Morrison had been harassing her for weeks, following her through town, making crude remarks, and today when she had finally told him to leave her alone, he had struck her in broad daylight on the busiest street in town. Dutch scrambled to his feet, spitting blood. "You just made a big mistake, Cowboy." Isaac's expression did not change, but his hands continued to shake as he waited. He had spent years perfecting the art of showing nothing, of keeping every emotion locked away where it could not be used against him. After watching his family die in a Paiute raid when he was 19, after burying them one by one in the hard Nevada ground, he had decided that feeling anything was too dangerous. He had become known throughout the territory as the cowboy who never smiled, never cried, never showed fear or joy or anger. But now his hands would not stop shaking. Dutch pulled a knife from his belt, the blade catching the afternoon sun. The crowd that had gathered backed away, giving them space. Isaac did not move, just watched with those cold gray eyes that had made more than one man reconsider a fight. "Put that away before you get hurt," Isaac said. "I am going to cut that pretty face of yours," Dutch snarled, circling. "Then maybe I will finish what I started with the girl." That was when Isaac moved again, faster than most men could track. He caught Dutch's wrist as the knife came forward, twisted hard until bones ground together and the blade fell to the dirt. Then he hit Dutch again and again, each blow measured and precise. His hands still shook, but his aim was true. When Dutch finally stayed down, unconscious in the street, Isaac stood over him breathing hard, his knuckles split and bleeding. He turned to Elena, and for just a moment their eyes met. Her face was pale beneath her olive skin, the blood still trickling from her lip, and Isaac felt something shift inside him that he could not name. She was beautiful, even with the injury marring her face. Dark hair pulled back in a simple bun, eyes like rich coffee, a straight nose and full lips now swollen from the blow. "Are you all right?" he asked, and was surprised by how rough his voice sounded. Elena nodded slowly. "Thank you. I do not know what I would have done if you had not been here." "Come on," Isaac said, picking up his hat from where it had fallen. "Let us get you to the doctor." "I am fine, really. Your lip is split. It needs tending." His hands were still shaking and he shoved them into his pockets to hide it. "Please." Something in his voice made her agree. They walked together down the street, the crowd parting before them, people whispering as they passed. Isaac kept a careful distance between them, aware of every eye watching, every tongue that would wag about this later. Virginia City thrived on gossip, and by nightfall, everyone would know that the emotionless cowboy Isaac Grant had beaten Dutch Morrison half to death over a girl. Dr. Samuel Chen had his practice above the general store, 3 rooms that smelled of carbolic acid and tobacco. He was a Chinese immigrant who had come to Nevada during the gold rush and stayed when he realized miners needed doctors more than they needed competition for claims. He took one look at Elena's lip and Isaac's bloody knuckles and shook his head. "Sit," he told Elena, gesturing to the examination table. Then to Isaac, "You too. Those hands need cleaning." Isaac wanted to argue, but his hands were still trembling and he did not trust himself to speak. He sat in the chair by the window while Dr. Chen tended to Elena first, cleaning the cut with gentle efficiency. "It will heal without stitches," the doctor said, "but you will have some swelling for a few days. Ice would help if we had any." He gave her a sympathetic smile. "I can give you some laudanum for the pain." "No, thank you," Elena said. "I do not like how it makes me feel." Dr. Chen nodded and turned to Isaac. "Your turn. Let me see those hands." Isaac pulled his hands from his pockets and Elena gasped softly when she saw how badly they were shaking. The doctor examined them carefully, cleaning the split knuckles and wrapping them in clean white bandages. "Interesting," Dr. Chen said quietly. "I have treated you before, Mr. Grant. Broken ribs, knife wound in the shoulder, that bullet grazed last year. You never even flinched. But today your hands shake like leaves." Isaac said nothing, just stared out the window at the street below. "Sometimes," Dr. Chen continued, "the body shows us what the mind tries to hide. Anger is a powerful thing. It can keep us alive or it can destroy us. You should figure out which it will be for you." When they left the doctor's office, the sun was beginning to set, painting Virginia City in shades of orange and gold. Elena stopped on the boardwalk and looked at Isaac properly for the first time. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, with broad shoulders and the lean hardness of a man who made his living on horseback. His face was all sharp angles, high cheekbones and a strong jaw, with gray eyes that seemed to look right through a person. His dark hair was long enough to brush his collar, and he wore the dusty clothes of a working cowboy, nothing fancy or pretentious. "I do not even know your name," Elena said. "Isaac Grant." "I am Elena Martinez. My father and I run the dress shop on the corner by the bank." Isaac nodded. He had seen the shop but never paid it much attention. Now he found himself memorizing details, the way her voice had a slight accent that softened her words, the way she held herself despite the injury. "Thank you again for helping me," Elena said. "Dutch has been bothering me for weeks, but I did not think he would actually hit me. I should have been more careful." "No," Isaac said sharply. "You should not have to be careful. He had no right to touch you, no right to even speak to you if you did not want him to." Elena looked surprised by the vehemence in his voice. "Still, I should get home. My father will be worried. I will walk you. You do not have to do that. I want to." The words came out before Isaac could stop them, and he felt heat rise in his face. He never offered to do things. Never volunteered. Never got involved. But something about Elena Martinez made him want to break every rule he had set for himself. They walked together through the cooling evening, past the saloons beginning to fill with miners and cowboys, past the general store closing up for the night, past the livery stable where horses nickered softly in their stalls. Elena's shop was a small building with a neatly painted sign that read, Martinez dressmaking in elegant script. Elena's father, Miguel Martinez, came rushing out when he saw her injured face. He was a small man with graying hair and kind eyes that turned hard when he saw the split lip. "What happened? Who did this?" His accent was thicker than his daughter's, each word carefully pronounced. "A man named Dutch Morrison," Elena said, "but Mr. Grant here made sure he would not bother me again." Miguel looked at Isaac for a long moment, then extended his hand. "Thank you, senor. Thank you for protecting my daughter. Please come inside. Let me offer you dinner at least." Isaac wanted to refuse, to maintain the distance he kept from everyone, but Elena was looking at him with those dark eyes and he found himself nodding. "That would be nice. Thank you." The living quarters above the shop were small but immaculate, decorated with colorful woven blankets and the smell of something delicious cooking. Miguel and Elena moved around each other with the easy familiarity of two people who had relied on each other for a long time. "My wife died 5 years ago," Miguel explained as he set the table. "In California before we came here. Elena is all I have left." Isaac understood that kind of loss, that hollowness it left behind. "My family is gone too. Paiute raid 7 years back. I was the only one who survived." The words came out flat, emotionless, the way he always said them. But Elena's hand found his across the table, squeezing gently, and Isaac felt that crack in his chest widen a little more. They ate chicken with rice and beans, flavored with spices Isaac did not recognize but tasted like comfort somehow. Miguel told stories about growing up in Mexico, about coming to California for the gold rush and finding nothing but hard work and disappointment, about his wife Maria who had been the strongest woman he ever knew. "She would have liked you," Miguel said to Isaac. "She always said you could judge a man by what makes him angry. A good man gets angry at injustice, at cruelty. A bad man gets angry when he does not get his way. You, I think, are a good man." Isaac did not know what to say to that. He had never thought of himself as particularly good or bad, just someone trying to survive in a hard world. But sitting in the warm kitchen with Elena's hand still resting near his, he felt something in him begin to thaw. When he finally left that night, walking back to the boarding house where he rented a small room, his hands had stopped shaking. But something else had started. A restlessness in his chest that kept him awake long after he should have been sleeping. The next morning, Isaac found himself walking past the Martinez dress shop on his way to the livery stable. He told himself he was just checking to make sure Elena was all right, that it was the decent thing to do. But when she saw him through the window and smiled despite her swollen lip, he admitted to himself that decency had nothing to do with it. He started finding excuses to be on that street, needed to check on his horse more often, had business at the bank next door, was thinking about buying a new shirt from the general store across the way. Elena always seemed to know when he was nearby, would come to the door or wave from the window, and gradually, Isaac found himself actually going inside the shop, sitting on the small bench while Elena worked on her sewing and they talked. She told him about growing up in California, about learning dressmaking from her mother, about the dream of one day having a shop that attracted wealthy clients from San Francisco. He told her about learning to ride before he could walk, about the ranch his father had built from nothing, about the specific shade of red the Nevada sunset turned the mountains in winter. A week after the incident with Dutch Morrison, Isaac was sitting in the shop when Sheriff Tom Barker came by. He was a heavy-set man with a gray beard and shrewd eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Grant, Miss Martinez," he said, tipping his hat. "Just wanted to let you know that Dutch Morrison left town, got on the morning stage headed for California. I made it clear he was not welcome back in Virginia City." "Thank you, Sheriff," Elena said. After Barker left, Elena turned to Isaac. Did you have something to do with that? Isaac shrugged. I might have visited Dutch yesterday, had a conversation about his future plans. What kind of conversation? The kind where I explained that if he ever came near you again, he would not walk away next time. Isaac met her eyes. I know I should have let the law handle it, but I could not take the chance. Elena was quiet for a moment, then asked, Why? Why what? Why do you care so much? You do not know me. Before last week, you had never even spoken to me. Isaac looked down at his hands, now healed but still remembering that uncontrollable shaking. I do not know. I spent years making sure I did not care about anything or anyone, seemed safer that way. But when I saw him hit you, when I saw your lips split and the blood, something just broke open inside me. I could not care, even if I wanted to. Elena set down her sewing and moved to sit beside him on the bench. My mother used to say that we cannot choose what makes our hearts come alive. We can only choose what we do about it. What would you do about it? Isaac asked quietly. If it was you, I think I would be honest about what I was feeling. She took his hand, the touch sending electricity up his arm. I think I would admit that I have been watching you walk past this shop for weeks, even before you came to my rescue. I think I would say that I like how your voice sounds when you tell stories about your family, and how your eyes change color in different light, and how you make me feel safe in a way I have not felt since my mother died. Isaac turned to look at her fully, seeing the courage it took to say those words, the vulnerability in her eyes. I think I am falling in love with you, Elena Martinez, and it terrifies me. Why does it terrify you? Because everyone I have ever loved has died. My parents, my brothers, all taken in one night. I swore I would never let myself care about anyone again. It hurt too much to lose them. Elena squeezed his hand. I cannot promise that nothing bad will ever happen, but I can promise that whatever time we have, it will be worth it. Life is not meant to be survived, Isaac. It is meant to be lived. He kissed her then, carefully because of her healing lip, and felt that crack in his chest split wide open. All the emotions he had locked away came flooding back, joy and fear and hope and love, overwhelming in their intensity. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Isaac realized he was smiling. He could not remember the last time he had smiled. I have to warn you, he said. I am not good at this, at talking about feelings or being open. I have spent too long being the opposite. Then we will learn together, Elena said. I am not exactly experienced in romance myself. My father kept me fairly sheltered, and after we came to Virginia City, I was too busy helping with the shop to think about courting. Over the following weeks, they did learn together. Isaac taught Elena to ride, taking her out of town on Sunday afternoons when the shop was closed, showing her the hidden valleys and streams that most people never saw. Elena taught Isaac to dance, laughing as he stumbled through the steps in the shop after hours, patient as he slowly gained confidence. Miguel watched their courtship with approval, often inviting Isaac for dinner and treating him like the son he had never had. The rest of Virginia City watched with a mixture of curiosity and approval as well. The emotionless cowboy had become almost cheerful, greeting people on the street, even laughing occasionally. It was as if Elena's presence had reminded him how to be human. But happiness in the Wild West was always fragile, and trouble had a way of finding even those who tried to avoid it. 2 months into their courtship, a gang rode into Virginia City. They called themselves the Ray's Brothers, though only 2 of them were actually related. 5 men who had been terrorizing mining towns across Nevada, robbing banks and stages, leaving destruction in their wake. They arrived on a Tuesday morning when most of the town was going about its business, and by noon they had robbed the Virginia City Bank of nearly $10,000. Isaac was at the livery stable when he heard the gunshots. He ran toward the sound, arriving at the bank just as the gang was riding away. Sheriff Barker was on the ground, a bullet wound in his shoulder, and the deputy was trying to gather a posse. "They are headed north," someone shouted. "Toward the mountains." Isaac ran to the stable, saddled his horse in record time, and joined the posse without thinking. It was only as they were riding out of town that he realized he was leaving Elena behind, possibly riding toward his death, and he had not even said goodbye. The chase lasted 2 days. The Reyes brothers knew the territory well, leading them through narrow canyons and across treacherous mountain passes. One by one, members of the posse turned back, their horses exhausted or provisions running low. By the second evening, only Isaac and 3 other men remained, tracking the gang by the signs they left behind. They found them camped in a box canyon, confident enough in their lead that they had not even posted a guard. The 4 remaining posse members crept close in the darkness, and when Isaac gave the signal, they rushed the camp. The fight was quick and brutal. 2 of the gang members died in the first volley of shots, caught completely by surprise. The other 3 fought back, and in the chaos one of the posse members took a bullet to the leg. Isaac found himself facing one of the Reyes brothers across the dying campfire, both men with guns drawn. "You should have stayed in town, Cowboy," the man said. He was young, maybe 25, with a scar across his cheek and cold eyes. "You should have kept riding past Virginia City," Isaac replied. They fired simultaneously. Isaac felt the bullet crease his ribs, a line of fire across his side, but his own shot was true. The man went down, and the last 2 gang members threw down their weapons and surrendered. The ride back to Virginia City took 3 days, slowed by injuries and the need to guard prisoners. Isaac's wound was not serious, but it hurt like hell, and he spent the journey worrying about Elena, about how she had reacted when he rode off without a word, about whether she would understand. He need not have worried. When the posse rode into town with the prisoners and the recovered bank money, Elena was waiting in the street. She ran to him as soon as he dismounted, and Isaac caught her in his arms despite the pain in his ribs. "I thought you were dead," she said against his chest. "When you did not come back the first day, I thought I had lost you." "I am sorry," Isaac said. "I should have found you before I left, should have said goodbye." "No," Elena pulled back to look at him. "No, you did what you had to do. That is who you are, Isaac Grant. A man who stands up when others need help, who risks himself to protect people. I do not want you to change that. I just want you to always come back to me." "Always," he promised. "As long as I can, I will always come back to you." Dr. Chen patched up Isaac's ribs and declared that he would live, though he should probably rest for a week or 2. Isaac ignored that advice and was back at the Martinez shop the next day, sitting on the bench while Elena sewed and told him about the town's reaction to the bank robbery and subsequent capture. "They want to make you a deputy," she said. "Sheriff Barker is saying you are the best tracker he has seen, and you kept your head when others panicked." "I do not want to be a deputy," Isaac said. "I am a cowboy, not a lawman. What do you want to be?" Isaac was quiet for a long moment, watching the way afternoon light caught in Elena's hair. "I want to be your husband if you will have me." Elena's hand stilled on her sewing. "Are you proposing to me, Isaac Grant?" "I guess I am." "I know I should have a ring, and I should probably ask your father's permission first. And there should be some kind of romantic setup, but I just cannot wait anymore. Every time I ride out of town, I think about the fact that I might not come back, and the idea of dying without being married to you is unbearable. So yes, I am proposing. Will you marry me, Elena Martinez, Elena set down her sewing and moved to stand in front of him. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Isaac stood and kissed her properly this time. No split lip to worry about, no hesitation or fear. Just joy, pure and simple, the kind he had forgotten could exist. Miguel gave his blessing enthusiastically, then immediately began planning a wedding that would be the talk of Virginia City. He wanted music and flowers and food for the entire town, wanted to celebrate not just his daughter's marriage, but the fact that she had found a good man who loved her. They were married 6 weeks later on a sunny October morning in 1873. The ceremony was held in the small Catholic church at the edge of town, with most of Virginia City in attendance. Elena wore a dress she had made herself, cream-colored silk with lace at the collar and cuffs, and Isaac wore a new suit that Miguel had insisted on buying him. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac felt that crack in his chest heal completely, filled in with something warm and permanent. The celebration lasted long into the night. Miguel had hired musicians from Sacramento, and there was dancing in the street outside the church. Isaac danced with his new wife until his ribs ached and his feet hurt, and he did not care about either. Elena was radiant, laughing and spinning in his arms, and Isaac thought he had never seen anything more beautiful. They spent their wedding night in a hotel room that Miguel had decorated with flowers, and Isaac learned what it meant to truly share yourself with another person, to be completely vulnerable and completely safe at the same time. Afterward, lying in the darkness with Elena's head on his chest, he felt like he had finally come home. They moved into a small house on the outskirts of town, a 2-room cabin that needed work but had good bones and a view of the mountains. Isaac continued working as a cowboy at one of the nearby ranches, and Elena kept the dress shop with her father. Their days fell into a comfortable rhythm. Work and meals and evenings spent talking or reading or simply being together. In their first year of marriage, Isaac learned to show emotion the way other people did. He learned to laugh out loud at Elena's jokes, to cry when he was sad, to admit when he was scared or angry or overwhelmed. It felt strange at first, uncomfortable, like wearing shoes that did not quite fit. But gradually it became natural, became part of who he was. Elena learned to trust that Isaac would not disappear, that his love was steady and reliable even when life was uncertain. She learned to lean on him when she needed support, to share her fears and dreams, to believe in a future that included both of them. Winter came to Virginia City with snow that turned the mountains white and made the journey into town treacherous. Isaac and Elena spent long evenings by the fire, wrapped in blankets, talking about everything and nothing. It was during one of those evenings that Elena told him she was pregnant. "Are you sure?" Isaac asked, his hand moving instinctively to her still flat stomach. "Dr. Chen confirmed it this afternoon. We are going to have a baby, Isaac." He kissed her then, tasting the salt of his own tears on his lips. "I am going to be a father." "You are going to be a wonderful father," Elena said, "and I am terrified." "Me too. But we will figure it out together, just like everything else." The pregnancy progressed through winter and into spring. Elena continued working at the shop until she got too big to comfortably sit at the sewing machine, then reluctantly agreed to let her father handle most of the work. Isaac fussed over her constantly, worried about every ache and pain, until Elena laughingly told him to stop treating her like she was made of glass. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time," she reminded him. "I am not the first, and I will not be the last." But Isaac could not help worrying. He had already lost so much in his life, and the thought of losing Elena or the baby was unbearable. He threw himself into preparing for their arrival, building a cradle from oak wood, painting the second room in soft yellow, gathering blankets and tiny clothes. Their son was born on a warm May evening in 1874, after a labor that lasted 14 hours and left Isaac pacing the floor like a caged animal. Dr. Chen finally emerged and told him he had a healthy baby boy, and Isaac rushed into the bedroom to find Elena exhausted but smiling, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blue. "Meet your son," she said softly. Isaac looked down at the baby's scrunched red face and felt his heart expand beyond what he thought possible. "He is perfect. What should we name him?" They had discussed names for months but never settled on anything. Now, holding his son for the first time, Isaac thought about his own father, about the man who had built a ranch from nothing and taught his sons to be strong and kind in equal measure. "What about James, after my father?" "James Grant," Elena said, testing the sound. "I like it." "James Miguel Grant." Isaac looked up at her. "Miguel, after my father. He has been so excited about this baby, and he has done so much for us. I want to honor him too." So James Miguel Grant entered the world, a healthy baby boy with his mother's dark hair and his father's gray eyes. Miguel was beside himself with joy, spending every spare moment with his grandson, telling him stories in Spanish and English, singing old songs from Mexico. Parenthood changed both Isaac and Elena in ways they had not expected. The sleepless nights and constant worry, the overwhelming love and fear, the sense of being responsible for another life, it all reshaped them. Isaac found himself thinking about the future in ways he never had before, about what kind of world his son would grow up in, what kind of man he would become. Virginia City continued to grow and change around them. The silver mining that had built the town was beginning to decline, and people started talking about moving on, about opportunities in California or Oregon. But Isaac and Elena stayed, putting down roots deeper than silver veins, building a life that felt permanent. When James was 2, Elena got pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was harder, and she spent the last few months on bed rest while Isaac juggled work and childcare and keeping the house running. Their second son, Thomas, was born in the winter of 1876, smaller than James had been but just as healthy. "2 boys," Isaac said, holding Thomas while James clung to his leg. "We are outnumbered." "Good thing I grew up with just my father," Elena said from the bed. "I know how to handle a house full of males." Miguel had aged in the years since Elena's marriage, his hair now completely gray, his movements slower. He eventually sold the dress shop to a younger woman and moved into a small room behind Isaac and Elena's house, where he could be close to his daughter and grandsons. Isaac had transitioned from cowboy work to managing the ranch where he had been employed for years. The owner, an elderly man named Charles Webster, had come to trust Isaac's judgment and eventually made him a partner in the business. It was steady work and good money, enough to support his growing family comfortably. Life settled into a new rhythm, busier and louder than before, but filled with joy. James and Thomas grew like weeds, running wild through the Nevada hills, learning to ride almost before they could walk. Isaac taught them everything his father had taught him, about horses and cattle, about hard work and integrity, about standing up for what was right. Lena returned to sewing, taking commissions from her home when she had time between raising the boys and managing the household. She was known throughout the region for her skill, and wealthy women from Sacramento, and even San Francisco, sometimes sent for dresses made by Elena Grant. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Isaac took Elena back to the Box Canyon where he had helped capture the Reyes brothers. It was a warm October day and they left the boys with Miguel for the afternoon. "Why did you bring me here?" Elena asked as they stood at the canyon's edge. "Because this is where I almost died," Isaac said. And lying there bleeding, all I could think about was you. About how angry I was that I might never see you again, might never tell you everything I wanted to say. That fear is what made me fight to get back to you. He took her hand, running his thumb over her knuckles. I know I do not say it enough, but you saved my life, Elena. Not just that first day when you let me care about something again, but every day since. You gave me a reason to feel, to hope, to believe in the future. You gave me our sons and a home and a life I never thought I would have. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. You saved my life too, you know. When Dutch hit me, I was terrified. Not just of him, but of being alone in this hard world with no one to protect me. And then you appeared, this man who everyone said never showed emotion, and your hands were shaking because you were so angry on my behalf. That is when I knew I could love you. They stood together in the canyon, the Nevada wind whipping around them, and Isaac thought about how far they had come from that afternoon in Virginia City when he first saw Elena's split lip. How that moment of rage had led to this moment of peace. The years continued to pass, marked by small milestones and quiet joys. James grew into a serious young man who loved books and numbers, talking about becoming a lawyer or banker. Thomas was the wild one, always getting into trouble, always ready for adventure. Miguel grew frailer but remained sharp, teaching his grandsons Spanish and telling them stories about their grandmother Maria. Isaac's hand still shook sometimes when he was angry, but it happened less often as life grew more peaceful. The Wild West was becoming less wild, railroads and telegraph lines bringing civilization to Nevada. Virginia City's population began to decline as the silver mines played out, but Isaac and Elena stayed, too rooted to leave. In the spring of 1885, Miguel died peacefully in his sleep at the age of 73. They buried him in the cemetery on the hill overlooking Virginia City, next to where Isaac's family was buried. Elena grieved hard and Isaac held her through it, understanding the depth of her loss in ways he could not have years ago. At least he got to know his grandsons, Elena said at the graveside. At least he saw us happy. He was proud of you, Isaac said. Every day he was proud of you. After Miguel's death, Elena threw herself into raising their sons and maintaining their home. James was 15 now, Thomas 13, both old enough to help with the ranch work. Isaac found himself thinking about the future more and more, about what would happen when the boys were grown and gone, about growing old with Elena in this house they had built together. One evening in the fall of 1887, Isaac came home to find Elena on the porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains red and gold. He sat beside her, taking her hand automatically, comfortable in the silence they had learned to share. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked. "Staying here instead of moving on when the silver ran out. We could have gone to California, started over somewhere bigger." "Never," Isaac said. "This is where we built our life. This is where our sons were born, where your father is buried, where I learned to feel again. Why would I regret that? I just worry sometimes that I held you back, that you could have done more, been more, if you had not been tied down to a small mining town and a family." Isaac turned to look at her fully. The years had put silver in her dark hair and lines around her eyes, but she was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. "Elena Grant, you listened to me. You did not hold me back. You saved me. Before I met you, I was dead inside. I was just walking around, existing, not living. You taught me how to live again. You gave me a reason to care, to feel, to hope. Everything good in my life comes from the day I saw your lips split and my hands shook with rage." Tears slipped down Elena's cheeks. "I love you, Isaac Grant. After all these years, I love you more than I did on our wedding day. I love you too. Always have, always will. They sat together on the porch until the stars came out, holding hands, comfortable in the life they had built. Inside the house, they could hear their sons arguing about something, their voices loud and cheerful. The sound made Isaac smile. James left for university in San Francisco in the fall of 1888, breaking Elena's heart but making her proud in equal measure. He wrote long letters home about his studies, about the city, about a girl he had met at a church social. Thomas stayed in Virginia City, learning the ranch business from Isaac, already showing the kind of leadership that would serve him well. In 1891, James came home with a young woman named Catherine whom he introduced as his fiancée. She was smart and kind, a teacher's daughter from San Francisco, and Isaac liked her immediately. They were married that summer in the same church where Isaac and Elena had exchanged vows, and seeing his son start his own family made Isaac feel like the circle was complete somehow. Thomas married a local girl named Sarah in 1893, and suddenly, Isaac and Elena found themselves grandparents. James and Catherine had a daughter they named Elena, while Thomas and Sarah had twin boys. The house that had been so quiet after the boys left was once again filled with noise and laughter when the grandchildren visited. Isaac retired from the ranch in 1895, selling his partnership share for enough money to live comfortably for the rest of their lives. He was 53 years old, his hair gray and his body marked by years of hard work, but he felt content in ways he had never imagined possible. He and Elena spent their days in simple pleasures. They read together in the evenings, took long walks through the hills they had explored when they were young, visited with their grandchildren, and maintained the house and small garden they had cultivated over the years. On their 30th wedding anniversary in 1903, their sons threw them a party that brought together everyone in Virginia City who remained from the old days. Dr. Chen was there, ancient now but still sharp. The woman who had bought Elena's dress shop came, as did ranch hands Isaac had worked with decades ago. 30 years, Elena said during the party, squeezing Isaac's hand. Can you believe it has been that long? Best 30 years of my life, Isaac replied. Though I hope we get 30 more. They did not get 30 more, but they got close. Elena died peacefully in the winter of 1929 at the age of 76. She had been in declining health for several years, and Isaac had been her constant companion, reading to her, holding her hand, telling her stories about their life together. The morning she died, she woke and looked at Isaac with clear eyes. I had a good life with you, Isaac Grant. The best life, Isaac agreed, his hands shaking for the first time in years, not with rage now but with the knowledge of impending loss. You gave me everything I ever wanted. A good man who loved me, healthy children, a home filled with joy. Thank you for not being afraid to feel, for letting yourself love me. Thank you for teaching me how, Isaac said. Thank you for that day in the street when your lips split and my hands shook. Thank you for saying yes when I proposed, for giving me our sons, for building this life with me. You were my heart, Elena. You were everything. She smiled and closed her eyes, and an hour later she was gone. Isaac buried her next to her father on the hill overlooking Virginia City, and for weeks afterward he could barely function. The grief was overwhelming, worse even than losing his family in the raid, because he had had so much more time with Elena, so much more to lose. But gradually, with the support of his sons and grandchildren and the memories of the life they had built, Isaac began to heal. He lived another 5 years, spending his time with family, telling stories about Elena to anyone who would listen, making sure everyone knew how much he had loved her. On a warm October evening in 1934, Isaac sat on the porch of the house he and Elena had shared for 60 years. His hands began to shake, not with rage or fear, but with something else, something that felt like anticipation. He thought about that day in 1873 when he had seen a stranger's lips split and felt emotion crack his carefully constructed walls. He thought about every day since, about the love and joy and family that had followed from that single moment. James found him there the next morning, peaceful in his chair, a smile on his weathered face. They buried him next to Elena on the hill, and at the funeral, James told the story of how his parents had met, about the tough cowboy who never showed emotion until he saw a woman being hurt, about how that rage had transformed into the greatest love story Virginia City had ever known. The house was eventually torn down, the ranch parceled off and sold. But the story remained, passed down through generations of Grants, a reminder that sometimes the things that crack us open are the very things that save us, that rage at injustice can transform into love, and that showing emotion is not weakness but the greatest strength of all. In the cemetery on the hill, two headstones stood side by side. Isaac Grant, 1842–1934. Elena Martinez Grant, 1853–1929. Below their names, a single inscription. He taught her courage, she taught him to feel. Together they built a life of love. And in the Nevada wind that whispered through the graves, you could almost hear the echo of laughter, of promises made and kept, of a love that had started with shaking hands and a split lip, and had endured through decades of joy and sorrow, triumph and loss. Their great-grandchildren still lived in Nevada, carrying forward the legacy of Isaac and Elena Grant. They told the story at family gatherings, about the day in Virginia City when everything changed, when a tough cowboy who never showed emotion saw injustice and could not turn away. They talked about the importance of standing up for what is right, of allowing yourself to feel, of being brave enough to love even when love means risking loss. The Martinez dress shop was long gone, replaced by modern buildings that bore no resemblance to the frontier town Virginia City had once been. But in the local museum, carefully preserved, was one of Elena's dresses, a cream-colored silk wedding gown with lace at the collar and cuffs, a testament to her skill and artistry. Next to it hung a photograph, faded with age but still clear. Isaac and Elena on their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by children and grandchildren, their hands clasped together, their faces lined with age but glowing with happiness. Isaac's hands were steady in the photo, no longer shaking with rage or fear, just holding on to the woman who had changed his life. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the wind was right, people claimed they could see two figures walking the hills outside Virginia City, hand in hand, still together even in death, still building their love story one moment at a time. The legacy of Isaac and Elena Grant lived on not just in their descendants, but in the town itself. Virginia City had seen its share of famous residents, miners who struck it rich and politicians who made history. But the couple everyone remembered was the tough cowboy and the dressmaker, the man who learned to feel and the woman who taught him. Their story became a reminder that the Wild West was not just about gunfights and gold strikes, not just about conquest and survival. It was also about people finding each other against all odds, about building homes and families in harsh landscapes, about love enduring through hardship and loss. In 1973, exactly 100 years after Isaac and Elena married, their great-grandson organized a reunion of all the Grant descendants he could find. They came from all over the country, doctors and teachers, ranchers and business people, all carrying pieces of Isaac and Elena's story, all connected by the love that had started in a dusty Nevada street. They gathered at the cemetery on the hill, 57 people ranging from infants to elderly. And together, they told the story one more time. About the split lip and the shaking hands, about the proposal in the dress shop, and the wedding that celebrated not just two people but the possibility of joy in a difficult world. About 2 sons and 5 grandchildren and countless great and great-great-grandchildren. All the lives that existed because a tough cowboy had let himself feel rage and then love. As the sun set over Virginia City that evening, painting the mountains the same red and gold they had been a century before, the youngest descendant, a little girl named Elena after her great-great-grandmother, asked her father why the story mattered so much. Because, her father said, picking her up so she could see the headstones, it reminds us that love is always worth the risk. That opening yourself up to feeling, even when it is scary, even when it means you might get hurt, that is what makes life meaningful. Isaac could have stayed closed off forever. He could have watched Elena get hurt and walked away, but he did not. He let himself feel and look at everything that came from it, all of us. We exist because he was brave enough to love. The little girl thought about that, then laid a flower on each headstone. "Thank you for being brave," she said solemnly. And in the Nevada wind, in the whisper of evening settling over the mountains, there might have been an answer. A sense of peace, of completion, of a story well told and a life well lived. Isaac and Elena Grant had found each other in Virginia City in 1873, had built a love that lasted through everything the Wild West could throw at them, and had left behind a legacy that would endure for generations. Their story was finished now, all the threads tied up, all the promises kept. From that first moment of rage when Isaac's hands shook to the peaceful end surrounded by family, from Elena's split lip to her gentle death in their shared bed, from 2 strangers to one love story that defined an era. It was complete, whole, perfect in its simplicity and profound in its impact. And if sometimes the wind carried the sound of laughter from the hills above Virginia City, if sometimes people reported seeing 2 figures walking hand in hand at sunset, well, perhaps that was just the way love stories worked. Perhaps the best ones never really ended at all.